Hey everybody, Steven here, and welcome to today's episode of Steven's Corner. Let's have a little bit of fun. So, something that I've been thinking about lately is one piece of advice that one of my mentors gave me. And this mentor runs a multi-billion-dollar family business and has just been a really good person in my life because he never seems like he's rushing. He never seems like he's overly busy. He always has time for people. He's always present and just probably one of the nicest people that you could meet. And if you met him on the street, you would have no clue what he does. You'd just be like, oh man, that's a really nice guy. But anyway, all of that to be said, I have a lot of respect for this individual. And over the years, he's given me a ton of great advice. And one of the pieces of advice that he gave me is, what's the lesson in this? And this is a question that he asks himself all the time, especially when running up against like something that's challenging, if maybe the business isn't going as well as it could be, if there's a seemingly really big problem that happens, personal or professional, doesn't really matter. He always has asked himself the question, what's the lesson in this? And it's just such a powerful reframe. I just had some stuff happen in our personal life, and that was kind of very impactful and seemingly negative. But I took a step back and I just asked myself, what's the lesson in this? What's the opportunity in this? And I had a totally different perspective and actually started to get a lot of little things that I'm going to be able to get out of that situation and that are going to be able to massively benefit our life in an extremely positive way and not necessarily have it just be this like seemingly negative experience that happened in kind of this one-off thing. So as you walk through your days and as you walk through your weeks and your years and stuff like that, take a step back and have a little bit of self awareness, especially on days when you're seeming frustrated or it's like nothing is ever going right, or maybe you're just having a really crappy month or a really crappy year. As opposed to just waking up and being like, all right, here we go again. It's going to be another crappy day. Take a step back, and I would encourage you even get a sheet of paper and write at the top, what's the lesson in this? And sit with that for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And if you're honest with yourself and you really intend to get a great answer out of it, you will. Now, what will probably happen initially is when you sit down with this blank sheet of paper that says, what's the lesson in this? The first things that are going to come to your mind are going to be like, there's no lesson in this. This is dumb. This is bullshit. Like, I don't deserve to have this be happening to me. It should be somebody else, whatever. Or you start blaming other people. But if you sit with it for 15, 20, 30 minutes, your mind will start to shift and you'll start to actually get some really good pieces of insight. Some of the best learning experiences come from the things that seemingly are really negative or really bad. But the difference between really successful entrepreneurs and really happy people in life is they take the time to actually hear and think about and learn what the lesson is and then actually apply it. So that now when this happens again in the future, which inevitably, if you're an entrepreneur or even just a human, you will always have tests in life. You will always have things that come up that are seemingly negative or non-ideal or shouldn't happen to you. It's just a part of life. And so, like I said, really successful and really happy people take the time to kind of learn what is the lesson in it so that now when this same thing or something similar happens in the future, they can say, oh, cool, I got it. That's the lesson in this. And I can immediately kind of turn that energy in the moment and not go down a negative path or not seemingly get caught in it. So ask yourself the question, what's the lesson in this? And it can be as simple as like, if you get cut off in traffic in the morning and you get really frustrated and really pissed, that might be a good time to ask, what's the lesson in this? Because nobody should get frustrated because another car pulled out in front of them. That's just not okay. So if you're the person that gets extremely frustrated, which, hey, 51% rule, if you don't know what that is, we'll put a link to it somewhere here. It's a really good lesson. But coming from somebody that used to get so annoyed by little things that didn't even have anything to do with me, that might be a really good opportunity to use this. That ties into a second thing that I want to talk about today, the power of questions. So often we walk through life and we go through our days making statements in our mind like, oh, that shouldn't have happened to me. This shouldn't happen to me. This isn't right. I deserve to have something better. How come that person is happier? How come that person is successful? That should be me. I've been working really hard. We go through life making these like kind of ridiculous statements in our mind. and most of them cause frustration. And so I learned this, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, the power of questions. And it can apply anywhere in our life. And so if you catch yourself going through your days like frustrated and, like I said, making these definitive statements that are just making you more and more frustrated as opposed to more and more happy, maybe get out a sheet of paper and write a couple questions down that are positive and forward moving and see what happens. Questions like, what's possible? What's possible in my life? What's possible in my business? What's possible in my relationship? What is it possible for me to create? What do I want out of this? What do I desire out of this? Don't let your mind run away with these weird, kind of non helpful, definitive type statements. Ask yourself some questions and use the power of your brain to actually create some really cool solutions, or at least really cool, positive places to focus. So, uh, if you journal, journaling time is a great time to do this. I typically journal in the morning. I don't always actually have anything that comes up, but oftentimes after I do my meditation, I sit down with just a blank sheet of paper and I'll write at the top of the paper, is there anything that wants to come up today or show up today in my life? And sometimes I'll write 5 or 6 pages, sometimes I'll write nothing. Literally on the paper, it just comes out. It's like nothing wants to come up today. And then I just get up and I go about my day. And then when I have a little bit more time and I'm feeling kind of creative, I'll write some really good questions about like, what is it possible or what's possible for me to create in my business? What's possible for me to create in my life that I haven't thought of yet or I haven't allowed myself to think of yet? We've all heard the old statement, if you can think it and you can conceive it and believe it, then you can have it. And it's true. But if you never let your mind actually create those things and you never let your mind actually see those things, then you're never going to be able to accomplish them. You're never going to be able to have it. So the power of questions is really amazing. So you can use it for kind of like that creation type stuff, journaling, and fun things like that. And you can also use it in day-to-day stuff, in your relationship with your spouse or your partner, in a relationship with your kids, in a relationship with your business, or even just like business in general. So next time you get frustrated about maybe something that an employee does, instead of just being like, dude, this guy is just ridiculous. He keeps messing up. I can't believe it. Maybe ask the question, what could I do to serve him so that he can better serve my company and my customers? Or maybe even just the question about, hey, what's possibly going on in this person's life that I don't know about that maybe is causing some of these issues? And how could I potentially help them? So you kind of get the gist of it, but questions are very, very powerful and they have a huge creative potential. So instead of making statements all day as you go through your day, maybe try asking yourself some questions and see what happens.